real-time feedback, because teaching online or sharing things online is very, very funny. You don't get any feedback, any response from the participants, like how they are receiving, how, whether you should increase the pace or you should reduce the pace, and what are their expectations. But the aim here is to keep the content in such a way that the requirement of everyone is met. So there are people from all fields. Some have prior knowledge of machine learning, some don't have. But I've been told like the large population uh, 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 do not have much knowledge on machine learning. So I have to go in such a way that they understand it from the scratch. So today's agenda would be like to understand about different kind of machine learning algorithms which are there. I'll quickly go through it, because talking about details about each of these machine learning algorithms will not make sense. But you should know what kind of algorithms are there. At least you should be aware with the jargons which are used in machine learning algorithms. Then before the machine learning algorithm is applied, as I mentioned yesterday, uh, a huge amount of work is carried out to prepare the data so that the machine learning algorithm can be applied. Then reaching at that stage, then the question which comes is how to choose a particular machine learning algorithm. So we are going to discuss on that part also. And just to give is just feel of how a machine learning algorithm is covered, be I'll be covering a very, very simple example in Python. Those who do not have any knowledge on Python, don't worry. Python can be learned easily. It's very, very simple programming language. So you can just have a feel of it, and then probably next session I'm going to have a full-fledged implementation of a particular machine learning algorithm end to end. Now, as we discussed yesterday very superficially, that there are different kind of machine learning algorithms. So this is the hierarchy of machine learning algorithms, if you see. So we discussed AI, which is umbrella term, then machine learning. In machine learning, there is a supervised learning, which is further divided depending upon the target variable which we want to predict, whether it is continuous variable or categorical variable. If it is continuous, then like those who have some knowledge of non-linear algebra, is that a variable, the target variable, if it is continuous in nature, then normally regression and those kind of things can be are applied. But if the target variable is categorical in nature, then we either 0 or 1 or some other value, multiple values, then accordingly we classify the data generally uh, as per those target categories. Now, unsupervised learning is supervised, as said, we know the output of some cases. So from the historical data, we have some parameters, and we know the output, that based on these parameters or these conditions, this was the output. That is, and that's how the algorithm can be trained. That in under these conditions, these were the output, and then the algorithm will be deciding. The algorithm will learn from that, and then it will decide what will be the output. But in case of unsupervised learning, you don't have the cases or the historical data in such a way that under these conditions that was the output. The output is missing. You only have a junk data. So that is where means that the target variable is unknown to you or to the algorithm. That is where you apply unsupervised learning. So here you can do clustering. Those who with the research background, like how the clustering is carried out. Then there are association, like one example which we saw yesterday briefly was like, if based on the historical data, if you see that a customer who comes to a mall to buy beer will also buy a diaper. So that is how the association rule starts applying. So there is a scientific theory behind it, which is based on which these things, these algorithms are made. Then there's something called semi-supervised learning. So in real life, things are not black and white; they are gray also. So for some data, you may have parameters and some output or the labeled or the target data, but in similar cases or the data which is in some the target variable is missing, so you have a data set which has mix, that is it has a target variable for certain cases and it does not have target variable for other cases. Then those kind of algorithms, I would say that you will be applying semi supervised learning algorithms. Then we have something called reinforcement learning. So it is more of related to optimization function. So it works on the reward and punishment principle. So like there are thousands of examples, and this is a current happening field in machine learning. So driverless cars, you must have heard about driverless car. So they work under this reinforcement learning. So the algorithm is taught by reward and punishment. So if like in the robotics also, if the robot has some input and it takes some action, if the action is correct, then you reward. So that the robot will learn out of it. If the action is not correct, then you punish it, so that the next time the robot will not take that action. So this works on those principles. That is a reinforcement learning. Professor Tiwari, sorry, Tripathi has mentioned that we will take questions in the last. But as a presenter, you need some kind of feedback, or people may have some doubt. So without creating too much of chaos, I would welcome or invite questions if anyone has, because I don't know how much I'm explaining, whether it is the participants are receiving or not. So if anybody wants to ask anything so far, they may ask. Otherwise, we'll move ahead. All right. So the next terminology or jargon which is used is computer vision. So this computer vision is like earlier, these algorithms which we discussed over here has more of numerical or textual data, whereas in computer vision it deals with the images and videos. So there's a particular set of algorithm. This is also a field of machine learning only. So there are particular methods which are there to deal with the data which has images or videos, and but the basic principle of prediction remains same as that of in other machine learning algorithms. What are the uses of computer vision? So if you see in this COVID era, when you can't have a biometrics or those kind of attendance system. So herein you train the algorithm on the faces of the employees, and there will be a camera which will, as you will walk in, the video will capture your image, and you will be compared with the image already stored, and then you can be identified, or your attendance is marked. Similarly, in case of nowadays, we were having a detailed discussion on proctored examination. You can't have physical examination. So can you have online examination? So, but how will you check whether people are not copying, or there are not others who are helping while the student is writing the examination? So how it works is it keeps capturing your image at certain interval of time, and there is an algorithm which sits over there and which checks the movement, your eyeball movement or your facial movement and all those things, and if it finds any kind of abnormality, it will prompt. You cannot keep watch on each and every student live for 3 hours or 2 hours, whatever is the duration of examination. But there are AI algorithms which will sit and which will keep checking whether uh, you are your eyeball movement or your other body movements and the tapping of your finger and all those things. So that is where the uses of what is the use of computer vision. Then we have something called deep learning. So deep learning, those who know about neural networks, they know about deep learning. So there is a this is also a class of machine learning algorithms, but they are slightly complex in nature. Where are they used? They are used where you there is a huge amount of data. There is a lot of complexity in data. So that is where these deep learning algorithms are used. But what is the drawback? Drawback is they require a lot of data. There's a requirement of a lot of data to train these algorithms. But if they are trained with proper data, then they give result better than human beings, because human beings cannot process so much of data at any point of time what these algorithms can do. So neural networks is more or less similar. It works on a neuron similar to the human mind. So if time permits, we will cover all these at later point of time. Then we have something called natural language processing, and this is the field wherein there is a maximum R&D going on in the field of machine learning. How? You need to understand this better. So natural language processing is basically how we speak, our modulation, our dialectics. It has both your text as well as your voice and the different components of the voice. So why it is important? So in the robotics or in the online field, nobody likes to type or send something. Like how the communication will happen in the future is through natural language. So if you have an intelligent machine, until unless you can't communicate with that machine in your own language, uh, uh, there will be not much utility with that machine. So as the machines are becoming intelligent, they need to communicate with the human beings in their language. So that is where there's a lot of R&D going on in the NLP. And India is an interesting example wherein people, at in different areas, people speak different languages. So how to capture that, how to implement that those who are from Kerala can communicate with the machine in Malayalam, and similarly. So those kind of things are happening in the NLP part. In fact, for all the online retailers and those who sell their product through online platforms, are also working, are even contributing funds for development of this particular uh, field, that is NLP. So in online, if in your experience, what happens is, if say you want to buy a product, so what is available is you can see only the photographs of that product, and based on that or reviews, then you go and buy the product. But there are limited categories of the products which can be sold online. But once the NLP is implemented, number one, it will make the communication easy. Second, along with the other fields, what they are working on is that they will come up with the products, or they will come up with the, I would say, capabilities wherein you can smell and touch also that product, like how is the texture of the product, how it feels when you touch it, or how it smells. So even those kind of technologies are also being built in. so that the online marketing, because online shopping and marketing, all those things, they picked up at certain pace up to a limit, and thereafter they are not picking up that much. So people are analyzing like how you can shift to online shopping. So for that, there are limitations with the existing technologies, but people are working in this area so that the online, you can buy everything online. So it will give you a feeling as if you are in a mall and you're touching the product or feeling it, and then you are buying it. So those kind of things are being worked on. Then I've written couple of other examples. So all these examples are not mine. I have curated from the internet to share with you guys and share my understanding on that. So this is not my original work. So I want to make it clear to everyone. This is just for learning purpose. Then yesterday also we discussed something called sentiment analysis and all that. So they all are part of natural language processing. So in coming days, like one more example, interesting example I want to share with you all is, uh, so what happens is, but when you start viewing news feed in any website, they track you, like what kind of news do you read. So and accordingly they will come up with those kind of related news to you. So there are a lot of people who, just to execute their work in on daily basis, they need real time information about the market. So financial traders are the one wherein they want to understand like what people are talking about certain companies, or uh, about the market, or about certain products and all those things. So there is a whole lot of teams, team which is there, who keeps on carrying out the research to give them real feedback. But with the implementation of these kind of technologies, it will be easy for them. They will be able to source information and pick up information from anywhere on the internet or otherwise, to enable them to take better decisions. So these are some of the interesting algorithms which are there as part of machine learning. And I've shared few of the examples, but there are many more which are there, which make them so interesting. Now coming to the machine learning model selection and prediction. So this is what you see on the screen, is a workflow of how the machine learning algorithms are implemented. Now if you see, uh, uh, the raw data has only 10% efforts. So I will say raw data. I'll come to that. Then there is a feature engineering and data. So it takes 80% of the effort in implementing a machine learning or predicting something using machine learning algorithm. And then there is a 5% of applying machine learning, tuning it, evaluating it. Hello? And then we have final is prediction of particular thing. So here there are two things. Yesterday also we discussed about data science and machine learning. So when we see it here in a small setup, we are not able to distinguish much between these two fields, data science and machine learning. But in industry where they are actually applied, there is a vast difference between these two fields. In the sense, so machine learning algorithm focuses on streamlined processes like for longer use, whereas data science is basically to get the business intelligence from that data to take particular decisions. They are like projects, whereas this is for longer period of time they are implemented. So now I'll be discussing on the raw data and feature extraction and what are features and all those things. But before we go there, I want to share, I mean, all those things which will be coming later, you can find it in on internet and it's there on literature. But I want to share my industry experience by giving you insight about how these things are, these things work actually in industry. So what happens is that automation is not that simple what you see here. It's not that you have a tool and you just apply it and you will get the insight. So there are several tools which are used to make any prediction. For example, now data comes from various sources as we were discussing yesterday. It can come in the form of PDF, it can come from in unstructured data, it can come in the form of voice, it can come in the form of a video. So you have data and you don't want to lose any of that data because you never know. One particular category of data can give you better insight than other. But in the financial sector particularly, so in financial sector, like I'll give you an example. So there is a customer. Since I was part of the traders segment, so I'll discuss a customer who wants to trade with a particular bank. So what happens is there are two kind of trading. One is voice trading. Voice trading, you call the bank and you tell, I want to buy this particular product. uh, he will confirm your order and you your order is confirmed and you trade with the bank. The second is electronic trading. So electronic trading, you create an account, you go there and you can decide, like, I want to buy a particular product at what price and you know at what time and all those things. So you have more choice on a e-trading platform. So these are the two trading things or trading data which comes to you as a team. Second is when and bank also wants that you should go for electronic trading, because there the bank don't have to you know uh, deploy that kind of manpower. Otherwise there will be people who will be taking your orders and who should be aware of particular things and they should be able to book orders and all that, those things. So that involves cost. But if you are doing electronic trading, then there are several merits for a particular bank if you're doing electronic trading. So what happens is, now this trade data comes to you, you have a product workflow, and this trade data should go to different channels. It will filter down and there will be settlement, and then your order will be booked finally. But in this entire chain, uh, there are various teams which are involved, which are looking after the different part. So it's not that it's a smooth absolutely fluid process. There are various teams which are working at a different part of this entire chain of booking an order. And then there will be reconciliation. So there is an external application on which you are booking an order, and there are internal. So then there is a reconciliation. Those who are from financial industry, they will understand that there is a matching of these two records, and that is also a large, a voluminous work which is carried out by bank. So what happens is that the volume of the data is so high, and you need to club the data which is coming from multiple sources. So there are various actions required, manual actions. So there are people who do all these things, manual actions, say 10 steps, copying data from here, putting it there, changing it to this form, then updating it there. So there, say for example, there are 10 steps. So there are large chunk of people who are doing on that. So and then there came the concept, something called robotics process automation. Some of you might have heard about it. So robotics process automation, what it does is, there is something called software bot. They are called bot. So all the actions, 10 steps which a person does or take to copy the data, putting it somewhere and and I said 10 steps which are then you using those applications. What do you do is they start recording your actions, they start capturing your steps. So what do then what once they are captured, so they also become part of your process. So those software bot will replace that human being, and they can work continuously. So what a person was doing, who was told that you have to do these 10 steps, is taken over by that bot. So that is how there is a complexity of applications which are sitting for automation of any particular process. It is not that simple which we see here. We see only a part of it. But yes, these things are more useful for researchers because they have small data set, and they can apply all these advanced algorithms to get better results than the traditional research methods which we have. Whereas in case of so like I was at some point of time when I'm long back, I was fresh entrant. So I was working on something called, there was a application called Acceptor. So what Acceptor does is, we used to have documents, PDF and other documents coming from several places. So in that PDF, we used to have certain tables and certain other data which we required for our financial data. So it has to be extracted. So how do you extract that? Is either somebody will copy that or somebody will type that. But since the volumes are so high, it was a wastage of human resources. So then this tool came, something called Acceptor. So what Acceptor will do is, it will uh, take source that PDF into it, one or multiple PDF. Then you decide, okay, I want this particular of data. So you do the scripting for that to take out that one particular piece of data, but the documents should not vary too much, because what happens is, when these processes are established, the structure of the document remains same. So what you do is, you code in such a way that that particular part will be uh, extracted out of the PDF. Then you do certain operations which you want to do it, and then it will spit out a data which you can use in Excel. It can be anywhere, in any kind of form it can spit out. So uh, we used to do that scripting part. So data used to come, we applied this, and Acceptor has to accept. Once the Acceptor is deployed, so obviously there are all kind of training, testing, verification, all that. And once it is deployed, so it will replace the human part. Only thing is, if there is change in the structure of documents which will come, it will prompt you that it will give some kind of indication or error. Then the respective SME will have to go back, see where is the problem, correct it, and that is how the chain will flow. So suppose Acceptor has come, it has given you a certain kind of input. Then say robotics, so RPA kind of processes will come in, they will consume the data, they will do the 10 steps which you were expecting from them. Then say, but robotics now has machine learning algorithms also. So the things which are happening in the industry are combination of all these particular kind of tools, whether it is data churning tools or data manipulation or data wrangling tools. And then there are RPA applications. So RPA, just to give an example, just for sake of your knowledge, is there are various popular applications which are Unizar Automation Anywhere. Then there is a Blue Prism. Then there's a UiPath. UiPath is they give you a demo application also on trial basis. So suppose you from a website, you want to take out certain things every time from that website. Some data is updated, and you want to take out that data every day. So you can use that UiPath for the trial version. Go to that website, search for this, search for that. So all those steps will be captured, and it will take out the data and give you the data every day without you interfering in that. So these kind of applications are there. This stack is there. Initially I had planned that I'll be covering on robotics, process automation, and all that. But seeing the interest of the people, probably it may not be useful. The aim was to pitch these contents that how operations are changing with AI and machine learning coming. But here the audience has a different requirement, so accordingly I've changed a lot of things here. Okay. So before I proceed, anybody wants to ask anything or want to tell me something, or are you with me?
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Okay, fine. Because I see only my screen, nothing else. So I need to
Excuse
confirm
me, sir.
people are there.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah,
Sir, one question that is like in this diagram, the 80% is given. Can you please pick?
yeah,
The 80% of the effort is being given to the feature engineering and data, like from raw data we are going to like
yeah,
deciding the features and then collecting the data.
right.
So, is there any rule like how much of the content percentage of data that we have should we go for like testing data set and training data set? So, is there
Yeah.
any ratio, standard ratio that out of the total data available, this particular percentage should be testing and this should be training?
Okay. No, it's very good question. Actually, uh, initially, when these things came, there used to be like 70% training and 30% testing data. But now there are advanced method of sampling data. The data is sampled in such a way, and once the algorithm is trained, then through those sample you verify whether what kind of output the algorithm is giving. Because earlier this rule of 70 to 30, that is 70 training and 30 testing data, over a period of time has this rule has changed. So I'm not talking about testing and training when I say 80% effort. I'll dwell on this why 80% we are mentioning here. But since you asked a different question, so I'm answering that. So training and testing data, which was there earlier, we used to have 70 and 30. But then over a period of time, it was realized that sometime the 30% of data which you are keeping for testing is too much of data. You are sparing, or there could be other patterns which are there in the testing data, but the when you're training the algorithm, it is not able to capture. So those things have changed now. So 70/30 which used to have, that has changed now. A more advanced sampling, cross validation, those kind of things have come, so that you don't leave anything in the data on which the algorithm is not trained. But why?
So,
Yeah,
sir, would you be covering, giving a glimpse of that, those
yeah,
things?
yeah. I will be coming as we go along.
Thank you, sir.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. So now let's move ahead with the first step is your data collection. So what are the problems with the data collection? Is so we used to have in industry also, this problem is everywhere. So since most of you are from the academia and university related job. So other day we were having discussion with some of the vice chancellors, and they were saying like they want to implement AI and machine learning in their universities. Then we said very good, but how do you do that? Then they asked, how soon can you implement those things? So the next question was, in which all areas do you want to implement AI and machine learning? So now, if you see in university, one is teaching learning process, the other is student related services. Now, if you want to implement AI in say teaching learning, then there is already a field, something called personalized learning, and there are a lot of products which we will get to see very soon. There are a lot of work going on, something called personalized learning. So how the personalized learning will work is, so when a learner, he will set the target, like what he or she wants to learn. The application will judge his entry level knowledge, what kind of aptitude or knowledge you have, and then it will make a plan for you, like these. So this is your this is what you want to learn, and this is how you can go about learning it. So it will a kind of people are expecting that the teachers will be replaced by the personalized learning. In fact, it can be otherwise also. That is a negative way of saying that a teacher will be replaced by personalized learning. Better way of putting across is the teacher will be empowered to address the need of each and every student, because every student comes with a different kind of knowledge, different kind of skill set, and he has different aspiration to learn a particular course. For some, say mathematics, they love it. I mean, they really want to learn that particular subject. But for some, it is just a subject which they somehow want to pass and get rid of this. So, but when the teacher imparts the instruction to a class, the teacher doesn't care like whether you are really interested or not interested. He has to pitch the content at the same level. So that is one aspect of machine learning, that is personalized learning. The other aspect is student related services. So there are various things in student services which the administrative or the academic faculty they do it. Those services can also be automated with AI, but only thing is you don't have data. The universities are not collecting data. That for machine learning to implement a machine learning algorithm, first requirement is data. When you don't have data, you can't implement machine learning. So the process is, suppose you want to implement machine learning for student related services. Today you decide, you collect the data at least for 1 year, and next year then you implement. So this is how the machine learning algorithm can be implemented in this, or any organization has to plan in advance that if we want to use particular technology, what are its requirements. The universities also have to prepare themselves in such a way that if you really want to use these technologies for improvement of the services and other aspects, then you have to start working in this direction. Then the other problems which are there is everywhere is those who are from research, they understand that the data which you get is not representative of the actual population. So suppose you want to automate a particular process and you want to predict certain things, but the data which you give to the algorithm is just a small population of entire, it's not representative of. So what kind of input you will give, you will get that kind of output only. So the algorithm will miserably fail. So these are the basics which you know. See, some of you who have knowledge about Python and some machine learning algorithm, you may be thinking that we should dive directly into learning the particular algorithm. So that is a very small part of it, and there large part of audience here which do not have expertise on Python and other related aspects. So they will not be able to take anything out of it. And these are the structures which need to be put in place. That is a very small component of it, which anyone can, once they practice it, they can learn it. But these are the problems, practical problems, which are faced by industry, by any organization which want to migrate uh, onto AI or machine learning technologies. Then the data is poor quality, or the irrelevant feature and all those things. Okay, so this is a very simple example, a case which I just want to give a feel, like how various data management communities are working on the data collection part. When I've emphasized so much on the data collection, actually there is a problem in data collection. If you Google then you will find, what kind of communities have come up to collaborate and share data related to their whatever they are doing it, so that then only you can think of implementing these kind of technologies. So if just for those who cannot view my screen, I'll just read out that Sally is a data scientist who works on a product quality for smart factory. The factory may produce manufacturing components like gears, where it is important for them not to have scratches, dents, or any foreign substance. Sally may want to train a model on images of the component, which can be used to automatically classify whether each product has defect or not. So here it's more of inspection of the products. Now, what will be the approach of the Sally to implement this? One, how, suppose the inspection in that factory was done by human beings only. The product, when it is produced, the inspection team consists of human beings will come, check the product, and there can be any kind of inspection methodologies they can do, they may avail, but that is how, but they used to do it. So there is no data now. So what happens is, so how Sally can go about doing it? First stage is data about data collection, like how the historically we used to do that inspection. So either some database is available which she can use to train the model, or else she will have to use a camera and start capturing the images or whatever videos of those particular products, and then give it to human beings. They do the inspection and record those inspection, and that is how data is captured, and then that becomes the data set for training the model, so that in future the inspection can be automatically carried out by using the machine learning algorithm. So here, from the images or from the textures of those product, anything like which you want to train, uh, uh, those kind of things will be taken care by the machine learning algorithm. So the inspection, you don't need inspection team anymore. But uh, now there are various things which are happening like this. So if you go to Amazon mechanical truck, this is a particular kind of service which Amazon gives you, in the sense you can outsource your these kind of activities to Amazon. This particular thing, it can be anything. This is one example which I've given. Say Sally captures the images or the photographs of the product which are made, and it contacts the team of this particular company. Say, I'll just give an example. If you go here, so they, what do they do is, you talk to them, they will give you the manpower to who can label it, whether the product is right or wrong, and they will give you the database. Or I mean, you can do take any kind of services from them where you need manpower temporarily. So these kind of things are happening because of uh, data which is not there. Yeah, so data collection is one big drawback, or I would say is one area wherein uh, there's not much progress on implementation of machine learning because of lack of the data or the capturing of the data. Now, once suppose you have the data, you have captured the data. Now, it is equally important to have the right kind of data to train the algorithm. There can be thousands of fields in the data which you have collected, which you feel is that you collected data, but all of them may not be the appropriate field which you can feed to machine learning algorithms. So what kind of things should be there in the data is, all these things are more or less, all of you must be aware that it should be valid, it should be accurate, it should be complete in all respect, there should be consistency, there should be uniformity in the features which are there or the different data sources. So all those things you have to ensure, and they are not so easy. We may say that once you have the data in volumes, ensuring all these things takes time. So we are covering this 80% part now, which takes time. That is to collect the data or and to bring the data in a form which can be fed to the machine learning algorithm. So all those things theoretically they look easy, but when you have tons and tons of data, then they are difficult to implement. Then comes feature engineering or feature selection or feature extraction. This is also a very important phase of implementation of a machine learning algorithms. So it's not like normally the freshers who pass out from the college and they say, okay, now I can implement any kind of machine learning algorithm, just you give me the data, I will take out the result. So it's not that plain and simple here. What happens is that you need to understand the domain. So here the domain expertise comes into picture. It's not that whatever data you get, you have to just feed it to the algorithms. You should thoroughly understand the data. So in industry, a data scientist has to be in continuous touch with the business or person to understand the process, why this data is like that. And because you need to modify that data, you need to either do away with some records or generate new features. When I say features, you can say parameters or you can say variables out of that data. So you need to have that kind of knowledge to do feature engineering. Why feature engineering is important? Why can't we just fed that data to the machine learning algorithm? There are several aspects which will get disturbed. Number one, there may be a garbage data which will your accuracy of the algorithm, the computational power, everything will go for 6. So every resource is important, be it the computational power, how much time it takes, uh, how fast you want to implement it, uh, and if you give more and more data which is not relevant, the learning of the algorithm will also be affected. It will not be able to learn the underlying patterns which are there in that data. So it is very important to do this feature engineering, to do away with those which you don't want, or to evolve new features. Certain things which you feel is the deciding factor in the output, but that is spread over, say, 3-4 features. But if you spread it, you lose the context. So you need to evolve. So there are various way of doing it. The feature engineering. Feature engineering, sometimes called feature construction, is what take building new features. Feature extraction is you may have heard about principal component analysis and all those, wherein between different parameters or variables, it checks for collinearity, dependency on each others, and all those, something called factor analysis kind of thing. And it will give you the result that only these particular variables are the one who are contributing in that particular variable, the output, target variable. So, and then you do away with those which do not have that kind of weightage in that in predicting the target variables. So this is also an equally important part, and it's a time consuming, but you can do it only when you have thorough understanding of the data which you're going to use for machine learning. So the data understanding is the basic step. It's not that you have you have machine learning algorithm. It's like hammer, and everything which you see looks like nail now. So you just apply it. So it doesn't happen that way. Machine learning, in particularly in data science, Excel and the traditional application software, they are of great help to understand the data initially, and then this machine learning or these kind of algorithms can be applied. So to understand the data and all those things, you need to have expertise in that domain and understand that. Anybody wants to ask anything here? Okay, now
Excuse me, sir.
suppose yeah.
I just want to ask, sir, is there any websites from where we can get a real-time data or real data for our research work?
Real time data or real data means you can get the sample data set
Okay.
which you can use for machine learning algorithms. There is a website called Kaggle, there is GitHub, there is various websites. Even Amazon and Google have the data set created for certain kind of problems which you can use to learn, not for the research work. Research work means you will use your original data on which you want to do the research. But to learn on these things, there are databases which are, most of them are in defined form. So there also they expect you to do certain things so that you learn. They won't give you totally ready-made data, but they will give the
Hello.
description of the data set.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello. Sir, disturbance or disturbance is there, sir.
Mr. Rajwardhan, kindly mute yourself. Ayush, please remove Mr. Rajwardhan.
Hello?
Mr. Rajwardhan.
Yeah.
I'm just doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's muted. He's muted now. He's muted. Okay, fine. Sir, go ahead. Kindly go ahead,
Yeah.
sir.
Okay. So.
I have one query, sir.
Yeah.
Kuldeep, sir.
Yeah.
Sir.
Yes, sir. Tell me.
So, how to do the cross validation?
So cross validation cross validation will come in picture when you
All the participant who is not muting their mic.
hello. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So cross validation, it will be appropriate when we come to that topic and discuss. When we will be training a particular model. That time we will use all the training methods which are there and do the cross the validation part also.
Okay, sir.
Hello?
So
Hello?
yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Hello? Hello?
Yeah.
Hello, good evening, sir.
Good evening.
I am Kopil Sangbasi from Andhra Pradesh.
Tell me, sir.
My doubt is how to feature attract using in machine learning new data.
No, sir.
How to use attract feature?
Okay. So feature extraction is when you know the data set that these are, say, 10 there are 10 parameters in that data set, and out of that 10 parameters, some are just description of data or some comments and all those things. So you don't want that, which will be not very helpful for you to predict anything, right?
Okay, sir. Sir, one more doubt, sir. If any help me for research work, sir, in any algorithm, sir, feature attractor, new algorithms, if any.
So feature
attractor.
And all these are not new things. Like in your research also, when you collect the data, that time you try to understand like what all parameters you are taking in that research to and then you are applying something to get the result. So if you have used SPSS and all that to
Okay, sir.
or forecasting also, be it time series forecasting or the all
Okay, sir.
algorithms. So you know like what all parameters or
Okay,
are
sir.
going in that. So and say out of 10 variables, 5 are relevant,
Okay, sir.
5 are not relevant. So that is also a kind of a feature extraction. It's a jargon which is used in machine learning, but in traditional research also you've been using.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. But when we
Okay.
apply,
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you.
yeah, when we apply machine learning, we are talking about a particular scale of the data. Like in research work, we have small data set or which we collect. It can be big also, but it is limited in number. But when we say machine learning, we are talking about a huge volume of the data. Yeah. Okay. So
Good evening, sir.
yeah, very good.
Sir, actually, my question is when we are training the data, is it mandatory that we have to add the sensitive attributes for training that particular data set which we have captured?
Uh, what kind of say
Like, sir,
sensitive
taking
things
an
you
example, suppose we are taking an example of a transportation data.
right,
Longitudes
right,
are being used. So
right,
they are treated as sensitive attributes. So
right,
when we are training that some data set,
yeah,
like after every 15 to 20 kilometers or 5-10 meters, there's a pot on the road. So,
right.
but that if we'll add that sensitive attributes like latitudes and longitudes, so
Right.
will it harm in future when we will take those sensitive attributes in training the data? When we will be using the machine learning algorithm, so
Yeah.
will those attributes will harm in future or they will not?
So
Like
on
we
what
have to
kind of
design an
data you
algorithm
train?
in which
Yeah, yeah.
we will
I have
be
understood your question. Say
yes,
what
yes,
kind
sir.
of data
Yes.
you use to train the algorithm. It will understand that pattern. Suppose you are saying that in a transportation model, say at some places there are whatever you want to avoid those, or you want to assign some negative weights so that you don't follow those paths. But it has to reflect somewhere. So when you train the algorithm, it will capture that kind of thing. So next time, say those obstacles are removed, so the fresh data will come. Then you will have to retrain the algorithm. So it is training an algorithm is not a one-time process. It has to be trained continuously to give you the accurate result as the situation changes. Okay. So
Okay, sir. But in future, they will not harm these kind of data. Like, if we take another example, say of a biometric traits also. So we use them for authentication. So
right,
if we take those traits and train for our data set for
yeah,
by different machine learning algorithms, so
right.
when we'll be using them for authentication, so is there will be a chance that these will not be misused when we'll be training them for some particular persons, that this is the genuine user who wants to enter into some system to access any data, something like that.
So training data set is very, very important, madam. Here you cannot train a algorithm with some induced variables in that, and then the actual data will come in a different way. So it will not give you the accurate prediction, right? Actually,
Okay, sir.
yeah. So in fact, you should leave it to the machine learning algorithms are how do they work is how do they capture is they capture the pattern which is there in the training set. If the pattern is disturbed, then they will not give you the output. So there are different way they captures. Every algorithm has different way of capturing that pattern. That is why there are different kind of algorithms. So how do you choose that is depending upon it's not that once your data is in ready form and you can use any algorithm. In fact, you have to go by like there are various things which you have to keep in mind, which are there on the screen. Because we are short of time, so I will share this. You all can read about it, like what kind of input you are receiving, what kind of output do you want. Then you have to understand what kind of constraints which are there. Then, in fact, I want to explain more. I had this example of under training, over training, or underfitting,
Sir,
overfitting.
your voice is not clear.
Uh, can you hear me now? So this is a quick example. Okay, wherein you have one professor and there are two students. One student, say, first one is not interested in studies. She is more interested, in chatting and all, and she doesn't care what is taught. Say the other student, she learns the concepts in the class, and there is a guy something called who mucks up what is taught in the class. So let's see, these are the three different machine learning algorithms which are at play. The first one is not interested, second one is he mucks up the thing whatever is taught, he's not understanding the underlying principle or the concept which are used in the class. And the third C algorithm, she understands everything, the concept behind a particular issue. So now what happens is, whatever is taught in the class, there is a class quiz, and the score of these three people are: the first one who's not interested in learning is guessing, and say she gets the 50% marks. The next one, the guy who mucks up, will get 98%. And third, the one who understands the underlying principle behind concepts, she gets 92%. So by looking at this, you will feel that the guy who mucks up is getting better marks. So it's like algorithm. If you train the algorithm on entire data set, if you don't keep any data set, for testing, the entire set is used for training. The algorithm will give you 100% result. So the case is similar to this guy who just mugs up the data or the pattern which is there. But you don't want to do that. In next scenario, say after some time, there is a monthly exam, and wherein the questions are not just what was taught in the class, but the implementation or the application part of it. So next time what happens is, you get these kind of score, wherein the person who is guesswork reduces, the guy who was just mugging up, his output also reduces, but the third one who was understanding the underlying principle behind the or the concept will get a better score. That is what you expect from a machine learning algorithm. That is why training and testing thing is important, and how much data you give through the training, then how do you do the testing, and this cross validation and all those things we will cover when we uh, so in cross validation and the sampling testing, what you do is, you use 100% data for training, but in that data you take out the samples, random samples, in such a way that those samples are representative of the different of the entire population. So before you actually test it with these different samples, you do the cross validation just to see how the algorithm is, what kind of score it is giving, and then you try to improve the efficiency of the algorithm. So suppose my data is like this way, okay, and if I apply a simple linear algorithm, so this is underfitting. It is not capturing the underlying pattern which is there in that data set, whereas this is a relatively better fit. In this, if I give if I use the 100% data for training, my algorithm just mugs up the underlying pattern. Or if I use, say, polynomial, higher degree polynomial equations which are there, they will just capture the pattern. They will just mug up. They will not understand the underlying pattern. So they will not give me a better result when I will use it in the application part. So second is the important one more important aspect which I wanted to cover was so all these algorithms which are there, plethora of algorithms are there, but in industry very few of them are used. Whereas in large organization, deep learning and these sophisticated algorithms are used by large organization or a startup which is focusing on particular kind of products. In 70% of the work, it is very, very simple algorithms which are used. Why? Two things. In business, what happens is a data scientist, after understanding the data, applies the algorithm and gives some output. Do you think just sharing that output, business will take it in that way? No. They will try to understand how have you gone about taking out that output. For that, the data scientist or the machine learning algorithm engineer will have to explain uh, like what is the process which is followed to give you this output. If the business is not convinced with or the say in deep learning, you don't know, there's no feature extraction in deep learning because data is so voluminous and complex.
Actually, sir, please mute the mics.
So in deep learning, the feature extraction or feature engineering is not there for your knowledge. Hello. Yeah. So
Sir,
this is
lot of
how.
disturbance is there. Please mute the mics of the participants.
Okay, I've got quickly. I'll cover. Otherwise, it will not be covered today. Able to cover today's content also. When there was a request for that I should give some example for the mechanical engineering branch, like how machine learning can be used in field related to plant and mechanical engineering. So what happens is, one example we have seen, like inspection of products and all those. Then make and buy decision whether you want to produce it in house.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Somebody is playing a game over here. Lot of disturbance is coming.
Nidhi Tyagi, please mute your mic.
Agar sir, can I say something?
Yeah, please.
First of all, I will. It was a very informative session, sir. Thanks a lot for sharing your knowledge and spending your time with us.
Sir, before we go to that part, if you have any question, you can ask, because I want to show one example on Jupyter Notebook, like how do we source data, and just quick example, and then we can go into Q&A session.
Okay.
Fine. Or do you want to ask anything related to what we are covering?
Sir. Sir.
Yeah,
I have a question. I'm Dr. Sonal Sharma, this side from Uttaranchal University, Dehradun.
Yes,
I have a
ma'am.
very, something which always confused me is the difference between the data mining techniques when it comes to classification, clustering. Since 2007, I've been working on it and it always brings the same kind of a results what we nowadays are referring to as machine learning.
Right.
So, what would be the one line difference, or whatever you feel like, the difference between the two approaches? Because till the great extent they are the same. In fact, when I talk about the association rule mining, and we are working with the multi-level like association rules, then it is more or less like what we are doing in the deep learning. We are creating more number of layers. So, what is the difference between these three: data mining, machine learning, and deep learning?
Yeah, fine. Good question, madam. The difference between the data mining and machine learning, I would say, is two things. One is scale at which you look at. Second is the machine learning has better tools now to automate that process. Data mining also has, but then there is no streamed thing, like you need a human intervention in that. Third is deep learning. So deep learning is when the data is too complex to understand. And here in the first two things, you can understand you can do some feature engineering. You know, like what all fields are there, how they are contributing. You have some kind of domain knowledge in that. But when you apply deep learning, you actually don't know. Like, you know, what kind of output you are getting is there is a black box. How it has gone to those stages and how it is giving a particular output. So that is difficult to determine. So there, when the data is too complex to understand and too voluminous in nature and can't do the feature engineering, the deep learning is preferred over other two.
So can we say if my data is manageable, let's say a record set of 2000, 5000 or somewhere around 50,000 record set, my mining or machine learning can play a role. Whereas if it reaches in lakhs, so probably DL is
No,
required.
there also it's a lack. Also, machine learning or your data mining will work. Say, I'll give you an example of image. Now, how do you differentiate between two images? So in image, what kind of features will you take?
Okay.
Yeah. So at pixel level, arrangement of pixel level, the length, breadth, there can be thousands of features which can be there. So you can't do that with a normal machine learning algorithm, wherein you use feature engineering and what should get more importance or what should not get important, or what should be removed, what should be retained. But in case of image processing, you give it to the deep learning, let them decide and predict for you. So that is where deep learning comes into play.
Okay, fine. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir. So these are some of the learning resources for a beginner. The Kaggle is a very well-known website, wherein if you attain some kind of level, then there are competitions which are there on this website, where you in those competitions you can participate. They will come out with a problem. They will say you have to solve this problem, and if you are able to solve it in minimum time, and if you can give better accuracy, irrespective of what algorithm do you use, obviously you have to first they will give you data in such a form that you have to do all those things. You have to do that data cleaning, feature engineering, and all those aspects, because those data cleaning, feature engineering, they play a role. Here the computational time is also equally important. So that is where this trick lies, like how better you can understand the data, what all efficient things you can apply, and which efficient algorithm can you apply to give you a better result. So like on Amazon and all, when you log in and what you do shopping, what do you get is next time you get better recommendations. So there are algorithms which are sitting, which keep monitoring your activity, they keep updating yourself. So they cannot be like lethargic or lousy in nature. They have to be efficient to monitor certain activities. So that is how. So I'll give you a by interacting with you all. I think most of you understand what is linear regression. So here, this is the cost function which is there, and normally so there is a learning rate. There are various model parameters which are there in algorithm. How algorithm learns is there are various parameters in the algorithm which are adjusted by the algorithm when you train them. And once you have trained the algorithm, those parameters have certain values. So when next time you apply, the algorithm makes prediction based on using those values. So that is how the gradient descent and its stochastic gradient descent. There are different versions of this, which basically minimizes or maximizes the cost or the other function, so that the algorithm learns faster. So these are the things quickly. I mean, some of you who are not from the computer background or who don't know Python may not understand, but I'll give you very simple example, hello world example, I would say, in machine learning. So I have install this Anaconda, which I showed yesterday, that these are the free software which are there. To learn, you can use them. So they come for free. You have to just download it for Mac or Windows, whatever operating system you have. So these are different IDE of which are there in this Anaconda Navigator. I prefer to use Jupyter Notebook. Say I launch it.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah,
Please share the screen, sir.
I'm sharing my screen.
It is not visible. Your face is coming only on the screen, sir.
Listen, there is a two IDs of Kuldeep Dagra. One is Kuldeep Dagra, and in front of a presentation is written. Just go through the list of attendees and just see Kuldeep Dagra bracket start presentation will be there. Just click over there and pin it.
Hey, sure.
Should I continue?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please continue, sir.
Okay. So a very simple example which is there, and next time when we come, we'll have a practical session for those who are more interested in seeing the things happening practically. So this is just a simple, there are various libraries of Python which I need to import. So there are two ways of doing machine learning things. One is every algorithm you write it from scratch. That is say linear regression. Like you do a programming, you write everything, you define variables, you use them and the functions. So you build it from scratch. But there you have more flexibility. You can change it anyway, and there are so many things which are from a data scientist, which is expected that you should be able to write any algorithm from scratch. But for researchers, those who want to just apply it, they can take help of these various libraries which are there. And every library has some defined settings. You can change it as per your need. So pandas, numpy, matplotlib, these for those who are not familiar, it may look very funny, but the thing is these are the libraries which are there in Python. Pandas, numpy, matplotlib, seaborn, sklearn. So these are the libraries which I'm just importing here for those who are totally new to this. And then I can run it this code bit by bit. Say interpretive language. Say I am running this, so it has imported those libraries into this now. Second is I'm just importing a data set that is very simple data set of salary. So how this data set looks like is extremely simple. I've deliberately kept it so in the sense like, so this is number of year experience of an employee and this is the salary. I have this data. I want to do a simple linear regression on this. So this is my data, number of year experience, and this is my salary. Now I go back here. So I've imported this data. So this is a simple command. So I use this command read Excel to import this. Here you don't have to even memorize everything. You can just you should know how to use, and there is a help also about the documentation part. Just keep clicking Shift and Tab. It will give you like the documentation of this particular function, that's pd.read So if you see here, this is the documentation, what all parameters it can take. This is how you can do it. So I have imported this. I'm say enter. Now this data set is imported. So now since this data set is in current directory, if you see the path, it is like this. Suppose it is residing somewhere either on some other computer, on the desktop, or on a network. I have to accordingly give the path. So there are different ways of pulling the data. I mean, this is so simple example. Otherwise, you can import data in chunks also. the data doesn't come in that simple form like Excel. There can be other things which are there. So these functions do cater for all those kind of things. It can be in Excel, it can be anything, CSV file, or the different file formats which are there. Now I want to see the data which I imported. I want to see like what is the shape, how many rows and columns are there. So it has 30 rows and 2 columns. This is the output which I am getting. Now I want to explore more. This is exploratory analysis, because data, you cannot open it in Excel when you will do on a real, actual projects. The data, you have to import everything here, and then you can explore the data. Since we have very, very simple data set, we can do that here, but otherwise, even to explore the data, you have to import them in such one of these library, and then only you can see the description of the data. So it gives you all the information, what kind of data type it has, whether it has any null value, how many columns are there, how many rows are there, how much memory it has taken. Then say I want to describe more about that data. So this is just a a statistics, summary statistics of that data. It will give you count, mean, standard deviation, minimum, 25 percentile, 50%, and all those things. We are not using it, but they are useful to understand the data when you are not much aware of this. So this is the so iLoc is a kind of method in the pandas to locate. So pandas has, just to give you example, probably if time permits, we'll cover pandas and NumPy. So pandas, it stores the data in the form of matrix. So every data can come in the form of matrix. Those who have traditional knowledge of programming, suppose if you store the data in matrix, and if you want to traverse through matrix, how do you traverse through is you use loops. You use for loop, while loop, and all those kind of loops. Through loops only you can jump between the values. But in pandas, it stores the data in the form of matrix, and every column or row has a different address. So you can access any particular cell directly rather than traversing through that. It can give you the summary of the entire matrix at one point of time. So these kind of libraries have made all these dealing with such a large data possible. Otherwise, if you use traditionally, if you have to say if you got 1 crore rows, and if you have to traverse through in traditional method of applying for loop or while loop, it will take time to reach to a particular or search a particular value. But here in pandas and NumPy, that is not the case. So they are so fast and efficient. That is why you can deal with such large volume of data. So here what I'm doing is basically in that data set, I have got 2 columns. So here I'm just separating them out. One will be my target variable, and the other is independent variable kind of thing. So this is what I'm doing here. And then I'm using, so here I'm doing train test split. Basically, I'm splitting the data into train and test. So this is very, very simple example of doing it, but otherwise there are k-fold, and somebody asked questions like, how do you do that? So there are functions for k-fold and cross validation. So you have to just use that function, nothing else. So it will have 30% of the testing data and 70% training data. So I have got now training and test data separately in X and Y. Now what I am doing is I'm using a simple linear regressor which is there. I'm training that with this data. So there is X train, and Y train. So these are the two variables which has got training data, and then X test and Y test, that is the testing data. So once I train my algorithm with the training data, I will use the test to understand like how what kind of performance it has. So this is what regressor I'm using, and I'm fitting. Fitting means so that algorithm will now fit into the training data which is there. And then here I'm just predicting, and simultaneously I'm displaying also. So it is giving me some kind of error. I think I have not run this. This is not defined. So if I run it here, so this is what my data has fit into the training set. And then here I'm doing the testing, and I'm simultaneously predicting also. Then there are several methods of evaluating this and improvising this, but it was very simple example, hello world example kind of thing which I wanted to cover. So this is what it entails. Obviously this data is very simple, otherwise there would have been lot of steps to bring it to the shape that you can use the particular algorithm. So that's it from my end. Anybody wants to ask anything is most welcome.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Can you help us to use how to use Panda and NumPy?
Sir, I will be more than happy to help you, but do we have time for that? Because they are, you know, content in themselves. But I can give you in next session. I can give you the gist of it.
The thing is,
what
sir, whatever you are discussing, that is theoretical portion. I agree.
Yeah.
But the thing is, until unless we are not come to know how to use all these pandas and NumPy and other libraries practically,
right.
This is not possible to do to learn machine learning and other things. So better is to you should conduct a practical session side by side. We should have a laptop so that we can use that and find out whatever you are telling us. It's my suggestion only.
So you know the Python language, sir?
So I'm working on it.
Okay. Because the thing is, the initial input was that many people who will be joining will not be aware of Python. So if you know,
so if they are not using Python, how can
so now it will give you a roadmap.
The thing is, the session should be practical as per my point of view.
No, I
Otherwise,
take your input in a positive way. We can cover pandas and NumPy in next section if everyone is okay with that.
Because sir, it's I think so. Yesterday you told this is for a beginner.
Yeah.
And in between, if somebody is having a doubt how to use all these things, it's my suggestion or it's my request to ask. Just share your WhatsApp number or mobile number so that they can interact in between you, not in between the session.
Okay, fine.
Because this is
can I ask the question?
Yes, sir, please.
I have a question regarding that where I can get these Jupyter notebooks. So that we this is a better way to share the Jupyter notebooks and they can learn from there. Instead of we are instructing each and every instructions to everyone.
Yeah.
Just share the Jupyter notebook and we can learn from there. Then we can ask the question from there.
No, that's good way of doing it. But
yeah,
those okay.
So this is my suggestion. And
that is how
we
it
can
happens.
use our Jupyter notebook and we can solve the problems and all these kind of things.
Sir, Jupyter notebooks will also run only when there are two things required. One is you need to have that data set.
Yeah, definitely we should keep that data in some folder, and then because you are saying a Jupyter notebook, it means if you are giving some path to these data sets.
Yeah. So okay, fine. I'll share. So I can share some Jupyter notebooks and some very
Some
simple
Jupi-
data set which those
yeah,
who
yeah.
want to practice can
Yeah,
practice.
yeah, that is the required. And second thing, if it is possible, you can share some Jupyter notebook of a basic beginner, like basic starting from the starting to the end, like that.
Yeah, I can do that also, but it will take some time for me,
Sure, sure. No issue,
to,
sir. No issue, sir. Kuldeep ji,
yeah,
no issue for
yeah,
that. We
yeah,
will
yeah.
wait. We have a lot of time because we all the teaching community is like a free till June, July, August. So they can learn by sitting at home.
Right. So I can do that. In
Yeah.
fact, I promised Professor Tripathi also that I'll be sharing a lot of contents with the people
Yeah.
who want to take it further. But it was just a, to give you a holistic view, because
Yeah,
if you start
definitely.
from your own when, then
Sir,
if
sir,
you are
देखो,
stuck at one
when
place, then you will not get the entire picture. So
yeah,
that's
yeah,
what I'm
yeah,
saying.
yeah. This is only the learning. You can suggest us. We
Yeah,
have to learn it. It doesn't mean that ki you are giving a spoon feeding, nothing else. If
right.
I'm not trying to learn it, there's no use of the data. Eh,
Absolutely.
that is the only the purpose. If you people share, if we learn it, then we can more go engage into that.
Correct, sir. Correct.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank
Good
you.
evening, everybody. They are very, very brilliant suggestions. But I would still request that all these suggestions, if you can mail us, so that we can mail it tomorrow before the session to Mr. Dagar, and you all can come with your laptops along to do the practical work. They're very good suggestions, but I would still
Thank you, sir.
request all of you
Thank you.
to kindly mail these questions, and we'll mail the questions previous to the session to Mr. Dagar, so that he can address these questions in the seminar tomorrow.
Sir, you have taken a very good step for the faculty for the tutors, but the thing is, maybe not many mails will be reached to you. Better to take the feedback for a 5 minutes over here, so
Yeah,
that
only
everyone can see.
just like a Google form, we can take a feedback. It's not like a, because Kuldeep sir is not like a sir. We answer everything. He is
Agree, sir. Agree. I agree.
preparing
I
for our
agree.
notes
No,
also. He's preparing
so I've
for our
understood more or less what is
contents
the
also. It's
requirement.
not like we disturb the Kuldeep sir.
No, absolutely.
No. But
Absolutely.
I've understood more or less the requirements, and accordingly
The
we'll do that.
points mentioned by you are absolutely very valid, and we will take note of these. And but I was requesting, so that we can keep a note on these points that you have raised, so that we can correct them tomorrow.
So one
Vishwas sir,
concern is there. Excuse sir,
Vishwas sir.
only one concern is there. If anybody is having a personal doubt how to use data mining and how to use everything, please ask from the websites, not in between the session. It's a suggestion only, because we
Yeah,
are the
that's what
beginner. So
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The points that all you have, you kindly mail us, and we'll send it the copy to Mr. Dagar, and he can read those points, and tomorrow he can address them before the session.
Vishwas sir, there is limitation of time also.
Yeah,
For
that's
this
what I'm saying. That is
yes,
why I'm saying.
we have
That
decided
is why
the
I'm saying.
session, sir. We have decided the timings of session is for 1 hour and 30 minutes only.
That
And
is what I'm saying. That is what
yes,
I'm saying, Tripathi, that if they can mail us. Mr. Dagar can take these questions tomorrow before the session, and we can start the session later on.
Yes, and we will take all the suggestions, and in future we may also plan for a detailed FDP also, sir. This is not the end. This is the beginning. This is the beginning. We are starting interacting with people all over the India. So
absolutely,
this is the beginning. So
absolutely.
Okay, okay, sir. Kuldeep sir, on behalf of all the participants, thank you so much for interacting us. It's been a pleasure to listen to you on such a complex topic. Explained in very simple and understandable way, sir. Thank you so much. And
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you for entertaining all the questions raised by all our participants. Thank you so much. For tomorrow's session, my colleague Ayush sir will mail you the timings and all the details. Thank you. Thank you for
So
joining.
please share for the feedback.
Very good evening to all the participants available here. It was an excellent section, and the timing for day 3 to day 5 will be now from 8 p.m. to 9:30. So try to join around 7:45.
We will intimate. We will, Ayush sir, we will intimate by emails. है ना, sir? We will intimate.
Yeah.
You're doing a good. You are good.
Day 4 and day 5, it will be from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m.
Sure, sure. Thank you. Thanks, Ashish. Thank you.
Yeah. There should be no confusion regarding the timing for those for the 3
No,
days.
there's no confusion. You are sending a mail. There's no confusion. We are accepting it. You are sending a mail. That's a great way. Good way.
Ayush.
Yeah, sir.
Ayush, stop the recording first.
Okay. We will
Okay, sir.
After consulting with Kuldeep Dagar sir, we will